Welcome to the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust meeting of Thursday, August 11, 2022. We're meeting in Memorial Hall at Town Hall. We are holding this as a hybrid meeting, so I will read the Governor's wording. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public, as well as members of the public, may access this meeting in person or via virtual meetings. In-person attendance will be at the meeting location listed above, which is Town Hall. Listed above, and it is possible that any and all members of the public body may attend remotely with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. The meeting may also be accessed remotely via Westborough TV, Verizon Channel 28, or Charter Channel 192, or on youtube.com/Westborough TV. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance or by accessing the meeting remotely, as noted above. Additionally, the meeting will be broadcast live in real time via Westborough TV, Verizon Channel 28, or Charter Channel 192, or on YouTube/Westborough TV. Okay, so I'm now calling the meeting to order. It is 9:01, and first of all, I'd just like to welcome a potential trustee who's joining us as an observer today, Mr. Ken Salzman, who's to my left here. And, welcome, Ken, and I hope you find this informative. We didn't get a chance to get minutes out.
Nope.
So
I still have some final edits to do, so we'll handle this meeting and the last meeting at our next meeting.
Great. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Baylor Avenue update. Basically, just to catch up, we have both the trust and the select board has both signed off on the quitclaim to transfer the house. No money has been paid yet, the $48,000 that the trust will pay to the town. That's to pay basically for the back taxes, and which we will then take ownership of the land. In order to do that, I wanted to make sure that we had an insurance binder covering us before we took ownership. And Nancy Armitage has been working on that with some guidance from Kim Foster, our assistant town manager, and we have submitted all the paperwork and the check for 1 year liability. We could not get, because it's if you will, an abandoned and empty building, we could not get property insurance coverage, but we do have liability and excess liability. So we're covered if, God forbid, somebody tries to get in or something happens or a tree limb falls on somebody, we have coverage, which would be our main concern, I believe, at this point, since the amount of the property itself is fairly low. I'm hoping to hear back. I'm on that chain. We're hoping to hear back in the next number of days. I mean, she, I think, submitted it earlier this week, or it may have been last Friday. So I'm going to ping out, if I don't hear anything by tomorrow, to our broker to get a status and hopefully an estimate of when we'll receive the binder. Hank, do you have anything?
Just a question, Ed. Seller's attorney does the closing, or?
I'm not sure.
There's actually no closing per se. Town council will simply file paperwork with the registry of deeds.
Town council will file the
Yeah.
deed, yeah. So my sense is we need the deed filed before we can do much.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. And I know Nancy and probably you she was reaching out to DPW to try to get a reference for a locksmith so we can get a lock on at least the front door, if not the front door and back door, since they're physically boarded up. There's not much else to do. We're sort of in a waiting pattern, but once we get in there, we can then do, I assume, an evaluation. I know you and Nancy have been putting together some project points.
Yep.
Some key points. I think one thing, I think I mentioned it, is we do have electricity there. We decided to continue with the electricity since we will need it no matter, for any work that a contractor may do. But I think one of the things we should do as soon as we have access is to go and throw the main breaker, just so we don't have any juice going through the walls, et cetera, for creatures to gnaw on those wires. Anything else on Baylor Avenue? Any questions or with that? If you get a chance, Ken, you may want to just do a drive-by. It's up by Lake Chauncey. I'm sure your GPS can find it. It's not in the best of shape, and there's actually also a pickup truck that needs to be disposed of. And I believe the police will tow it away as an abandoned vehicle, according to Nancy. But I want to be sure of that.
Okay.
Okay, so that may solve our need to find our own donation place, et cetera.
Complexity with the cars, you don't have the title.
We have no title at all. It does have tags on it,
You have to
which,
go through some process that
Yeah.
is operational without having a title. Or we have
Correct.
to go get a title, which you can do, but I'm not sure we want to.
no,
would be-
it's a very, very old F-150
And
that,
none of that stuff can be done until you can prove ownership.
correct.
Right, which means the deed has to be filed, so.
Right, so, we'll take care of that, just to get, the property a little bit more cleaned up. All right, Endicott Drive, any, you
Yeah,
came before the board.
We went to the so-called one-stop meeting,
Yep,
which is basically a pre-permitting meeting of folks that are involved in pre-permitting kinds of things. I wrote up some notes and details. Unfortunately, the building department and public safety folks were pretty much all on vacation, but it doesn't matter. At this point, the building department could offer, both could offer some commentary, but it's not things that we need to figure out what to do next, because the next kinds of, we have a lot of work to do before we get to where we're worrying about what the police and fire department want. And at least my key takeaway is that there's a couple of things that, first of all, until the sewer situation for multifamily residential in town is resolved, we can proceed and do due diligence, but you really don't know what the outcome's gonna be, because you need to have a sewer connection. It is not possible on that lot to go with any kind of a septic system,
right.
because it's much too close to extensive wetlands.
Right.
So, and the town engineer was there, couldn't really comment on when that'll be resolved, but it's in process, right?
Right.
So that's, and so anything we do in a way of engineering, or any spending we do, we know we're at risk that if the sewer situation doesn't work out to our favor,
Right.
that we won't be able to proceed. But the next.
Unless it was a single resident, maybe.
You might be able to get a single residence, yeah, you could probably do a single residence there. Yeah, because they do have capacity for single-family residential. The town engineer and others kind of did clarify that the any utility connections would be the responsibility of the developer. We'd have to, basically, they would recommend going forward, assuming or planning on having a shared driveway for whatever number of units are put in there. That means that town will not extend the street. Actually, the town typically doesn't extend streets. The town allows developers to do streets, and if the developer does it to town standards, they'll consider accepting it.
Right.
Okay, so, again, be shared driveway, sewer connections, water connections. There's a number of fees involved in connections. Sewer connection is 10,000 a unit, water connection is 5,000 a unit. We could go to the Board of Selectmen and request that they comp that fee, and they could consider that. But again, that's way down the road.
Yes.
It's just another idea, the real expense is not the connection fee, but running the lines. The folks there couldn't represent the gas company, the power company, et cetera, but typically gas and power company, it's your job to extend the lines if they need to be extended.
Right.
They'll only extend as far as they have customers, and you have to go pick up wherever the last customer is, so
Right.
that's gonna be an expense.
I would think that just because of the location, that's a fairly well-served neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's power, water, sewer, all that stuff is
Yes.
available,
But-
basically at the end of Endicott Drive.
Right, and so the town would be paid to extend water sewer, because they're the utility holder. As far as, we would definitely need electric extended.
Yeah, I mean,
We could decide whether or not we wanted the units to have
Gas
gas.
Gas is another, yeah, gas is
Right.
a kind of a down the road, whether you go with electric heating or gas heating.
Right.
But from the planning department, it talked about what their recommendations were about the zoning's currently M1, which doesn't allow any
Which is
residential.
municipal, just for our viewers,
Municipal zoning.
sometimes it's good to,
And basically, the recommendation from the planning department is that we consult with the ZBA and informally consult with the ZBA and get an understanding of what they would, what we need to bring forward to get them to give us an idea of what they're willing to support, and also get some idea of what they probably would support in terms of number of units and things of that
Right.
sort.
right.
We could go with a comprehensive permit, but Jim Robbins, the town planner, recommended that we consider the zoning appeals ZBA process first, and
Instead of
instead of
friendly
going through
40B.
a friendly 40B.
Did he say why?
No, I didn't probe it. I mean, either way, you end up with the ZBA anyhow, so. Again, we're talking now, so what I'm looking to do is get any opinions from the trustees. I would go forward and contact make informal contact with the chair of the ZBA and just start a conversation, let them know what we're thinking about doing, and get their feedback on how they would recommend we proceed.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, Alan,
I-
then Kate, any comments on that?
I'm all for having that meeting.
Yeah.
Probably be great for you and one other trustee to
I'll-
participate. And I think it would also be good to maybe tap the gurus at Mass Housing Partnership.
Yeah, okay, sure.
So
right.
one of the things we haven't decided is whether these units would be sold or, we would contract maybe with the housing authority to manage them as rentals. If they were going to be rentals, doing them under a comprehensive permit actually instills additional protections that would keep the units affordable in perpetuity. So there might be some pros and cons.
Yep.
There might be some advantages to doing the
Sure.
comprehensive permit versus just a set of variances from the ZBA.
Okay.
So if either you or when Nancy gets back, maybe you can reach out to Mass Housing and ask just give them a.
I'll start the
brief-
conversation with Mass Housing.
Okay,
and,
that's fine.
Get their ideas on how we would go about, rental versus sale and such. But, and then, once we get some idea of what the ZBA or what the zoning changes might allow, then we could give us some idea of how many units we want to look at. Once you have some idea of how many units, you can at least do a first pass financial analysis and get an understanding of just a kind of a back of the envelope understanding of
Yeah.
what the spending and investment and subsidies might look like.
Right.
Right.
So that you have some idea how much you're gonna have to spend. And the conversations with the ZBA will give us some information about how supportive the zoning authorities
Right.
will be. And I believe we're starting to get some occasional feedback from the community.
Right.
We made the community advocate. Our
We did.
presentation to the Board of Selectmen was written up in the community advocate, and that got some attention from folks around the community who are beginning to provide some feedback on their thinking about whether it's a good idea, a bad idea, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think it's good just to, because sometimes the paper, just, they take some talking points. They did a good job in
Yep.
covering it. But sometimes people, what's said and what's heard and what's understood can vary. Basically, just for any viewers, we're looking at a very small piece of property that's adjacent to the pickleball courts and the parking lot across from Lake Chauncey that is currently not being used, and the recreation department doesn't see any need for it, and it's just there. It has some wetlands, it has, though, buildable area, and with the need for affordable housing, we believe we can do, as you mentioned, Hank, 1 to 3 units. So it's at the end, if you will, of Endicott Drive. As you drive down Endicott, you would then come into a dead end currently, which is the property that we're looking at. It would be affordable either at a rental or, if we decide a purchase, we would keep it deed restricted so that it would remain affordable, ongoing. We believe from our sort of brief discussions that it would be very appropriate for a, what we call workforce kind of housing, i.e. first buyer, et cetera.
And
Alan, if you want to chime in.
And I'll add that one of our operating principles is that our projects are consistent with the architecture and feel of the surrounding neighborhood.
Right.
And so we would not consider doing any work or development, or even when we rehab other buildings in other parts of town, in a way that they would no longer be consistent with the nature, the style, the architecture of the surrounding homes.
Right. So we want to just make sure that people understand that we're very, very conscious about, different viewpoints and different things, but our mission as, per the master plan and per our charter is to, develop, rehab, and make generally affordable housing throughout the town. So this could be a nice, addition to the types of units that are available. Okay, so follow up, you'll mass housing and the
Start conversations
ZBA.
with both of them.
And let us know about the ZBA meeting.
Sure.
Either, one of us, in addition to yourself, it would be
Yep,
good
I'll make
if
sure
we were
that
there.
Invite the trustees and.
Right. Okay, moving on. Rogers Road update.
Again, the board of directors of the Housing Authority met. They got feedback. Again, I've written up a set of notes that they gave us from a
Right.
conversation Leah and I had with the executive director. They had gotten feedback from MHP's consultant
Right.
about what the issues might be. The board.
On the land, the MHP Mass Housing
Yeah,
Partnership.
Mass Housing did a phase 0 feasibility study and kind of identified what the things were that needed to be considered before they start. A key message from the Housing Authority, which I believe came from MHP or came from the state, is that the state at this point is not supporting the Housing Authority expanding their portfolio. What I believe that means is that the state will not provide subsidies to the Housing Authority to expand their portfolio.
Well, the preference for the state right now
Right.
is for private construction of affordable homes because it's economically more feasible than public sector construction. And so that doesn't necessarily mean the units wouldn't be part of the Housing Authority,
Right.
management and a part of their inventory. That really depends how the project is designed.
Right.
And it's still unclear to me if the Housing Authority would have to sell or if they could lease the property underneath the development.
The land
and how
use.
for the land use, for how that works. And certainly if the intention is that these would be rental units,
Senior affordable rentals.
senior and handicap affordable rental units, the RFP that goes out for private development could indicate preference that the housing authority be contracted as the management and maintenance company.
At this point,
provider.
though, I mean, the feedback from the ED is that the board is not at this point in time ready to proceed. And I agreed with her that we'll check in the fall with the board again as to, and try and retest their interest in their willingness, ability, resource availability, et cetera, to proceed. Again, unfortunately, I didn't make that meeting. Alan, I don't think you made it either. did
No, I
you?
couldn't.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if we should ask the director if we can be on an upcoming agenda so that we
You
could,
can do that, yep.
have an open discussion
Yeah.
about,
Concerns.
sort of the, the pros and cons, and knowing that, at town meeting, in our most recent town meeting, in the transfer of additional funds into the trust for projects, this was one we identified we want to pursue, and
Right.
it does have overwhelming support from town meeting. We got the funding for it,
Yeah, the
so.
1.2 million transfer from the stabilization
So
fund.
I think the community would support a project.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
And I think I understand the concerns, right, about, of some of the authority trustees, about property ownership and long-term. I believe we can work through those issues and
I
get the
agree.
project.
I'll
a point we can
I'll
move
talk to
forward.
her about getting on the agenda September, October, this
Okay.
fall.
That sounds
And
good.
then, we can figure out what we want to, how we want to proceed with it, just kind of get a conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're done talking,
Oh, no, no.
but I think at this point, you really have to get the board more solidly have to get the board of directors more solidly behind the project, because it's really their project with our assistance, right? They have to take the lead. We can provide a lot of what I'll call
Right.
technical
Well,
assistance and advocacy.
Yes,
And money.
yes, or
And
they-
support, financial
or
support in some
if-
cases.
if they're uncomfortable managing the project,
Yep.
they
Can set
They
parameters
could,
and-
well, they could set parameters and ask the trust to do that
Right.
on their behalf. And so that, all of those issues can be, managed, and hopefully in a way that moves the project forward in a way that their board and, we as a board of trustees are all comfortable.
Okay, good. Yeah, if you can
Yeah, I'll
get
talk
on,
to her. I'll
for
get-
September, October, whatever
Find
makes
out
sense
what-
for
yeah,
them,
what makes,
just so we can continue our discussions and I don't know how much they've been in touch with, I guess, mass housing and primarily would be the ones that they interface with, I believe.
No,
Or
they're
DHCD or-
DHCD is the regulatory agency.
Okay, or
That would-
DHCD.
That would be the agency, that would be the point for subsidies through the housing authority for the project.
Right.
Our involvement would be in subsidies, not only from DHCD, from Mass Housing Finance Authority, from U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, as well as a number of there's the Affordable Housing Trust Fund at the state level. There's now an ARPA-funded
Right.
source of revenue for affordable housing, and, there's the new, it's still in the works,
The infrastructure.
the high wealth tax that'll
Oh.
generate that'll create another fund or contribute to the funds for affordable housing. And of course, then there are private trusts and foundations that
yeah, you got
subsidize
CPA.
as well.
At least I believe CPA will be approved in the community, so that's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we won't get a lot early
we
on.
won't
No,
see
but
much
it's-
from that until
But it's
2024,
another
2025.
funding
But
source, so.
yeah,
Yep,
but
yep.
it's there.
But that is actually 10% of whatever is brought in through the
Minimum,
CPA
right.
has to go
Minimum,
to
yeah.
housing, particularly Housing Authority.
No,
The
affordable
Housing
housing.
Authority does have a contact with MHP that helps them navigate the
Right.
various agencies and helps, kind of advocates and helps and educates, provides technical assistance, so. I can't remember the lady's name, but there is a contact there.
Okay. Good. All right. We're making good progress here. Obviously, a lot of things in the works, but a lot of it is hurry up and
Well,
wait.
I mean, a lot of this stuff, Ed, I mean, having entered the permitting process a couple of times with, and recently with the one-stop shopping, that makes it easier. You're looking at a year, 18 months to permit a project, easy, best case, right?
Yep.
So,
We just got to keep slugging along, I mean, step by step, as I said, so, and appreciate everything you're doing.
Can I just
with that.
add something here?
Yeah, go ahead, Kate, we can hear you.
Sorry. Hank, thank you so much for all the things that you've done so far with Rogers Road. You've been very persistent, and it is just a waiting game. But I would also like to support you in that project in whatever way I can. So I know Leah was involved with you initially with like the initial conversations, but I know Leah's also
Oh, we're
been,
cutting that, hold on a second, Kate.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
It could be me. So anyway, I wanted to say that I would support you up there, with that project. So if there's, if we get invited to the meeting in the fall, I would love to attend with you. Just wanted to add that I would support that, or I
Very
would
good.
help
Okay.
Thank you.
whatever way
Yeah,
I can.
yeah, please. You only have to ask once.
Just remember, when you raise your hand, you carry the clipboard.
Thanks, Kate. What I thought at this point, since we didn't have a ton of things to discuss, was to do two things. First of all is to review some of our strategic goals and objectives. It's good. We've had this done for 6 months plus, and thought it may be helpful if we sort of give ourselves a review, check off how we're doing, where we need to focus more, et cetera. So if we can look at our strategic goals matrix, actually, I'm wondering if it's best if I try to bring that up. Oh, boy. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have it on this PC. You have it.
Do you have the cord?
Yeah, if I,
Hand me the,
I don't know if this is going to, yeah, that shouldn't affect the,
and then,
want to share. We'll just take a little break. Alan normally does our AV stuff, so. I gotta unmute. There we go.
this is what?
You're two. And we're just resetting some of our. Where it's coming from.
all this intuitive technology is not really intuitive, is it?
There we go. That fixed it.
That's your machine, yeah. So,
I'll do the side one too. I think we're gonna lose our video of, let me do this.
Do I need to give you permission to share?
Nope, let me just, people don't need to see my email. Okay, let's try this one more time. This is when we go to commercial break?
there we go.
There we go, yeah, we got it.
Is Kate still online?
Yep, Kate, can you still hear us? We might not be able to hear her because I'm projecting on everything,
Okay.
but.
I see her.
But you can see her in the Zoom.
I can see her in the Zoom.
Okay, so she's on. Okay, so,
Why don't we run down?
yeah, I can walk us through.
Yeah, why don't you? You were one of the main authors of this. So.
Okay, so we divided our strategic goals into three high-level groupings. One was to build the capacity of the trust. The second were to create opportunities. And the third were specific affordable housing programs. Under build capacity, we've been working and continuing to work as far as recruiting trustees, professional support. That's our relationship with Mass Housing Partnership and other agencies that we've been building. That work's been going on and continues to go. Education and outreach. We still have, it's been moved around on the website, but I'll work with Mark Stockman, the town's IT director, to make sure that we still have the working groups webpage available to folks so that they can see the initial study and assessment, and we'll make sure that the co-urbanized site that we used in creating the trust has a lot of useful information, education. I'll make sure that's readily available again. It's sort of gotten buried. We've also been doing outreach in a number of ways. As a reminder for folks, we did do emergency rental assistance during COVID-19 and did a lot of community outreach there. We've been doing community outreach with respect to the residences at Westborough Station and other issues around. We did have some conversations about the relationship between the Affordable Housing Trust with the Community Preservation Act Exploratory Committee. Those conversations will have to, if when it passes, hopefully, and that committee is formed going forward to run to the CPA committee, that we would then need to have conversations with them about that relationship.
Right.
And just as a side note for folks who might not be familiar, the funds that are held for affordable housing or may be allocated to affordable housing, CPA committees, community preservation committees, can operate one of two ways. One, many community preservation committees delegate the affordable housing decisions to the trust. The trust will evaluate needs, come to the CPC for requests that they would then vote on. Subsequently, it gets voted on by town meeting, but that the trust is the one point of contact for developers or other projects that might be looking for CPC funds related to affordable housing. Other communities, the CPC will take those requests and the trust will take those requests. They'll each evaluate independently and will coordinate. And so there's two different ways of managing the relationship, and it can be both or hybrid. So there's some conversations on how we want to coordinate the role. It's also not uncommon that one member of the Community Preservation Committee is also a trustee, or vice versa, for cross-pollination. Under create opportunity.
Yeah, before we go on,
Sure.
so as far as just, I want to do more specific, I think to recruit trustees, we've obviously brought on Nancy Armitage, and Ken has obviously sent in his letter of interest, and hopefully that'll work out. And that would bring us up to our full cadre of 7 authorized members of or trustees. So we're hoping to do that. You mentioned the professional support. I think we have been doing a fairly good job of reaching out to various partners and state agencies and people that we find can provide us guidance, et cetera. On the education and outreach, we have been, and actually I wanted to mention this later, last Wednesday I taped, it was a sort of a last-minute invite on the Frank and Mary show.
Oh, great.
It was only with Shelby Marshall, a select board member, but basically it was just bringing people up to date on some of our current projects and a high-level overview. But part of that is also to continue to keep people informed of the mission of the trust and the background of things that we have done, such as the rental assistance program during COVID. And, just a way to continue to keep people informed and hopefully engaged with the work we're doing. So that's available, and I don't know how often it's playing, but it seemed to go very well. We had a very good meeting with that. And that's been done a few times before, so just wanted to mention those as well, so.
Okay, great, cool. There is actually another component of education which we should coordinate over the next year or so, and that is seeing if any trustees can go through the certification process.
Yes.
That would enable the trust to, if needed, fill the part of the mission where we would be able to monitor and manage affordable housing compliance.
Right.
And act as a marketing agent, or participate in that part of the, if not even the marketing agent, at least be able to be certified to participate in that part of the process for any project we're involved with. The second grouping is create opportunity. We have in prior meetings made the effort to map master plan actions to the Affordable Housing Trust goals and objectives. As the Master Plan Implementation Committee, which is still accepting letters of interest, is formed and starts meeting, I suspect there'll be conversations as they set timeframes and priorities. We'll take those timeframes and priorities and again, reassess our goals and objectives and make sure we're in line with those timings and priorities.
Ellen, are any of our trustees on the Master Plan Implementation Committee?
I don't believe so.
I'll talk to somebody and maybe I'll sign up for another assignment.
Okay.
I think, again, cross-pollinating the committees is really helpful.
Yes.
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 If we have the resources, and so I'll
Okay. Another opportunity was around advocacy, and we have two areas. One is folks who've watched select board meetings and this meeting and planning board meeting know the legislature passed and the governor signed a housing choice initiative with some pretty significant sweeping changes with respect to actually no requirement to build, but a requirement to zone for affordable housing. There is a working group that's been established, I believe under the auspices of the town manager, that's, or the town planner, I forget which, but it's a working group that's looking at understanding not only the legislation, but the subsequent guidance, rounds of guidance that have been published by the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, and will go forth to the planning board with recommendations for zoning changes. And so we're not part of that working group at this time. It's a pretty hands-on group, but we are monitoring it, and we will have an opportunity for input as they start developing the plans. One of the challenges right now is just even understanding the regulations that are being drafted, which haven't been finalized.
Right.
The third, second advocacy, third part of creating opportunity is advocating with respect to affordable housing for wastewater reallocation to multifamily housing. That's in process. The guideline, the timing I still heard is that we should have at least some preliminary decisions by the end of the first quarter of 2023. I would like, I think it'd be helpful if the trustees are in concurrence that one of us ask to meet with the DPW director and the town manager with an eye towards the trust formally requesting that should wastewater allocation move from commercial industrial to multifamily housing, that a certain percentage of that allocation be specifically for affordable units. And with preference to maybe even certain types of projects that we see going forward.
So really,
and so my understanding is that some other communities have done that, and it's a way, even for a commercial developer who's deciding whether they want to do the 10% minimum or more, there's a wastewater allocation incentive to do more, right? And wastewater management is expensive, so I'd like to see the trust initiate those discussions and at least have that part of the thought process. Not knowing if there's going to be reallocation, although I expect there will be some, or how much that reallocation might be. It's a complicated scenario, but saying if X, 100,000 gallons a day or X gallons a day get reallocated, what percentage of that should be reserved for future affordable housing units?
Another way of thinking, the way I've been thinking about is, what will the process be for allocating permits when the change occurs?
Right.
I'm assuming there will be a waiting list of folks who are interested in getting permits, and I don't know whether it's the DPW or whether it's the sewer department board, or whether it's the sewer plant board.
Those are good questions to ask,
You
but,
know, who's gonna make that decision? What's the problem? I could start with the town engineer and see if she knows anything. And if she does, fine. If she doesn't, I can talk to the director.
I think this would be,
I've worked with all those guys before, so.
sure, I would suggest initiating with the DPW director and the town manager,
Yeah,
and going through the town manager's office on this,
okay.
because it's a
Just to at
townwide
least
issue.
get an idea of who's going to do what, once the survey is completed.
Have they thought about what the
How
process
the
is gonna be
allocation
for
will
for
work.
allocating, decision-making on permitting? I am not even quite aware of what has been, my sense is in the past, it's been first come, first served, but,
And we should get a statement to that if they have a policy written up.
Yeah.
If we can get,
our DPW director is pretty thoughtful. He's probably aware that that's gonna be an issue. I'm not sure he's had the bandwidth to address it.
It would not surprise me if he was on top of it already, though.
Right.
Yeah,
He's a very good person.
We've got good folks there.
excellent.
The third area of strategic goals are our programs, and and this is really looking, we wrote the goals for fiscal year '22, fiscal year '23, and then a range '24 to '26. Developing additional affordable housing on the Rogers Road property is one of our strategic goals, with a hope that we would have at least 40 units there. We targeted 3 properties, sort of based on the pace at which the town acquires tax-taken properties. And converting tax-taken properties to the Affordable Housing Trust, we set a goal of 3 by the end of fiscal year 2026. We're in the process of transferring our first, which is exciting. Infill conversions, these are properties that the trust would actually purchase, do any necessary repairs and renovation, and remarket as affordable. Our goal there was 4 units. Development of a workforce housing, a first-time homebuyer program. That would help people renting in the community to move into their first homes, and also would be eligible for town employees. Our goal for that was to help 20 families or 20 units do that, and then to take the necessary steps for us to be accredited as a monitoring agent and a preservation resource for affordable housing units, which ties into the education component of our goals as well.
And that possibly what we're looking to do at Endicott Drive and/or Baylor might be opportunities for that.
Yes.
For the first-time buyer programs.
Yeah. And one of the things we had talked about in the past, and I had reached out to the Mass Housing Partnership, is MHP has what's known as a one mortgage,
Yeah.
which for households that qualify is a 3% 30-year fixed mortgage with 5% down, and Mass Housing Partnership pays the PMI to save that money.
Just the points.
And that's a statewide program, and MHP partners with several dozen banks to facilitate the mortgage. What they did in the city of Boston with the Housing Trust in Boston is that Housing Trust committed $1 million to enhance, and it's called the One Plus Boston program, where the trust either grants or loans funds to the homeowner to either raise the down payment from 5% to as high as 20%, or to pay points and lower the interest rate. And the goal there is for the homeowners, and the homeowner to be able to better afford market rate housing, right? And so the subsidy is meant to say, hey, if you can afford X dollars a month, in mortgage payment, right? And we can do something to get the mortgage payment of the house you're going to buy into that range, that's what we'll do. And so we had discussed as a trust earlier, seeing if we as a trust could also do that type of program and subsidy. And we've allocated an initial seed money. I spoke to MHP in the spring. They were in the middle of getting their conference up and running. And they asked that we contact them later in the year. So I will reach out to them in the next couple of weeks again to see what's needed to put the program in place. And to see what we would do for design and if it's feasible for us to do.
Since there's somewhere along the line, somebody's gonna need to go investigate some of the, there's the government-supported programs like the One Mortgage. There's also, I believe there are nonprofits that have various and sundry programs for helping first-time home buyers. We run from education up to working with banks. I know that banks, particularly the smaller community banks, are often under pressure to meet regulatory requirements for, I think it's a Community Reinvestment Act or CRA, CRA, to get CRA credits, and they'll often offer below commercial rate mortgages and special terms and to get CRA credits. But you gotta, that's a fairly complicated, you need to go get educated about all the ways to do this.
Yeah, there's definitely research to do. I mean, the goal would be whether, either do something specifically with the One Plus, a One Plus program with MHP because it's well-defined as a pilot, or have a more generalized program where households would come to the trust directly. That's all open for discussion. But, so that's.
I think there are some other trusts other than Boston, and some of the Metro West trusts that are doing that sort of program. I'm not sure the details of it, but I know that some of the other trusts are doing it.
We're early.
Housing Partners may know who those are.
Oh, they know, yeah.
I'm sure they do.
MHP knows who's doing what. They're pretty up on that stuff.
So
we might ask for a couple of examples or a couple of communities that have done it in their experience, and if they have a project list or a to-do or whatever, we can borrow from them.
Okay.
Last point.
That's where we are.
All right, the monitor agent you had
The
mentioned
monitoring agent
before.
I mentioned, and that's really that, at least one, preferably two or three
Right.
of the trustees. There's two different training programs. One I think is only a half day or 2 half days.
Right.
One is a full 2-day workshop. As a trust, we've already discussed the trust's willingness to cover the cost of taking the courses. But we just need to make sure it's on our radar, because
And
when those,
MHP
we'll run them.
will run them, we just need to get their schedule.
Right, and the challenge is when typically it's getting into those courses is like, getting Elton John final tour tickets. They announce that registration's open, and within hours, those courses fill up, so.
So give MHP.
Alan, when you mentioned the monitoring, it reminds me, has the Lawton's Way issue ever closed, or is that still floating?
We've not heard back from DHCD or the property owner.
Okay, so it's still an open question as to whether that property owner will try to sell. Okay.
Okay.
Just make a note here. Okay, any questions, comments on our thing? I think we're making measured progress on everything, which is good. I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back, but it's good to, take a look and see how are we doing, what are some of the action items that we need to take on.
And I would suggest that probably next spring, post-annual town meeting,
Yep.
that we as a trust plan, an extended or retreat-style meeting where we can, see where the master plan implementation committee is, see what's happened at town meeting and other issues at that time. We'll hopefully have information about wastewater reallocation at that point in time. And we could certainly step back and say, okay, we're now at the end of fiscal '23. What's our,
Move it out another
24,
year.
25, 26 through 28 goals?
Yeah,
And where do we want to set the priorities and do that kind of planning?
that sounds good. Okay. Grant, moving on, and maybe if you could bring up what I wanted to do, there's not that much decision.
What's next?
Oh, was the finance.
Finance, the cash
Oh, you
flow.
want me to pull that up too?
Yeah, if you
Okay.
could. I mean, this is really more information from, within the trust, but, transparency is good, just to show everybody that we're on top and monitoring. There we go. It's obviously, I don't know how readable people will find it, but
I can make it bigger.
the goal here was I had asked our Director of Finance, Leah Talbot, to give me a kind of report dump of, since the beginning of the trust in November 2020, where our income and expenses have been and what's our bottom line. And obviously, this is, as people can see, we've spent on the SARA program. We've obviously needed legal advice from time to time, which has been incorporated with that. Some of the initial things we did with Civic Plus for websites, et cetera. The Waterman design to take a look at the Endicott Road properties, and the MCO housing, particularly for consulting on the residents at Westborough Station. So the cabinet risk strategies, that's the insurance for Baylor Avenue. And we can see where we've gotten money via town allocations at in November 2020, and then last spring at the annual town meeting, the 1,200. And, the town does invest, monies that they hold for various units. And, we made some in '21, it was down a little bit, but we're about, just because of the market, have not made a windfall, to say the least, but it's only about 5K. So that's about it. The balance, as we can see, is 1.7 million that we have available to us. And a lot of that had been, I'll say, raised or transferred into the trust based upon our desire to develop the senior housing at Rogers Road. So that was, if you will, kind of earmarked. That was the primary purpose. So even taking that, we still have a nice balance, about 500K, that can be used as we move forward with Baylor Avenue and Endicott projects, which should get us off the mark.
And it looks like there's enough cash available we don't have to worry about going to fall town meeting, and probably don't have to worry about asking for money at spring town meeting. We may want to ask for a piece of property, but
Right.
that's
Right.
TBD. So we're in good shape from a financial perspective.
Right. The last thing I wanted to ask was whether we foresee anything, I didn't, for fall town meeting, because that's closing in a couple of days, the warrant.
Request, the initial warrant request.
The warrant request for any articles for fall town meeting. I'm not aware. We
Not
don't-
aware there's anything that we're
Nope.
prepared to intelligently ask for.
Okay. that sounds good.
And we, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, under our governing documents, charter, whatever we call it, we don't have any audit or fiscal reporting responsibilities other than to be reasonably responsible amongst ourselves, right?
Well.
There is supposed to be an annual audit, but
Yeah.
as our funds are being managed by the finance department of the town, it would be part of the overall audit of the town.
Okay, so it's part of that overall,
Yeah.
right?
Part of that audit,
That's
they,
great. Yep.
they'll look at our,
Make
you
sure
know.
we're complying with proper business practice or,
Yeah.
Right, and everything, every expenditure, we've made has gone through our normal process, through, quotes, POs, subsequent invoices and authorization to pay. So I've been doing that and
Great.
keeping those records, as well as town finance committee. So, any agenda? I don't know what Alan's doing. So, we're back. Okay.
Okay, we're back and we can see Kate again.
All right, so we did that financial update. Any other, we're right on time here, any other business or discussions that,
and just curious, I mean,
Yeah.
the residences Westborough Station, my sense is that the town is in the process of working with their attorneys and our attorneys on whether
Right.
we take, and that's just still kind of ongoing. And
right, it's basically in the hands, the retention of affordable units, of 24 affordable units at the residence at Westborough Station is now really completely in the hands of the town.
Right.
So, town
Yeah.
manager, council, et cetera, are working through with that.
And it was on the agenda
Select-
for executive session of a recent select
Okay.
board meeting
Okay.
under the auspices of Mass General Law with respect to strategy with respect to litigation. Beyond that, we can't
Do we have
really
any
discuss
insight
it.
into whether the owner is going to increase the rents and such, or is that just, we just don't have insight into it?
We,
We do
as
not,
a
we as a
trust,
trust do not have insight into it.
The select board may have better information, but that's still under, as they said, executive meeting.
Yeah, I understand it, that's
Yeah,
typical.
so basically, I did get a call, or actually, I got an email from someone the veterans agent, who, there's a veteran in the house, among obviously other tenants, asking about the status, and I redirected them to the town. I gave them an update as far as we brought it and what had been done, but I said it's been handed over to the town now for
And-
subsequent.
And obviously, once there is information that can be shared publicly, we will.
Yeah,
Yep, okay.
And,
Yep.
and once there is information that can be shared with the residents, we
Right.
will do that as
Right,
well.
I understand, yeah.
okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions or business or discussion? No? Okay, we are scheduled to have our next meeting in September. I don't have the date in front of me, but it's obviously the second Thursday. And if there's no other issues, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved?
And seconded?
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning? Do we need to do a roll call?
Technically, yes. So Edinburgh, yes.
Bain, yes?
Roush, yes?
Kate?
Form, yes.
Okay, good. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
And thank you,
Westborough TV.
Yes.